now, if, however, you're introducing yourself in a business presentation, here's a really quick step-by-step guide that will help out a lot. So remember that at the beginning of your presentation, you want to get your audience's attention in a positive way, and you want to do it fast. They don't want to be there most often. So you want to remember that before you start your presentation, you're often going to have an opportunity to network or interact with the people in the audience as they enter the room. So rather than just kind of saying good morning, like most people do, and then just starting your speech, start a conversation with the audience members as they enter the room. This does a couple of different things. Number one, in a professional setting, when new people walk into a meeting and they don't know what to expect, they're probably going to feel a little uncomfortable. And so the easiest way to kind of ease some of that tension is to chat with your audience as they come in. And the second thing that occurs, by the way, is that as you get to know the people in your audience a little bit more, you can kind of personalize your content. You can alter the way that you deliver your presentation a little to make it more customized for the people that are in that room. You can actually use the people that you talk to by name when you're covering things in your presentation. So let's get to the step-by-step process though. So here's step one. The first thing that you want to do, and this is the really simple part, is start with your name and the name of your organization, your company that you're representing. So this is the really easy part. Just tell your audience who you are and what organization you represent. You might add a short clarifying description of your company if your company isn't well known. Like for instance, most people outside of the training industry, unless they've heard my podcast or unless they're in the training industry, most people have probably never heard of the Leaders Institute. So when I introduce myself, or if somebody introduces me and they say, hey, he's with the Leaders Institute, I typically have to kind of clarify that a little bit to kind of let people know what the Leaders Institute is, because it's not a household company. It's not like an Amazon or a Microsoft or something like that. So I'll typically say something like, hi, I'm Doug Stannard with the Leaders Institute. And the Leaders Institute, by the way, is an international leadership development company. So something really, really quick it's still short and sweet, but it's a little bit more clear to someone who may not have ever heard of my company. One of the things that I'm kind of often asked here is, should I give my job title, right? Should I say, hey, I'm Doug Stannard with the Leaders Institute, and I'm actually CEO of the Leaders Institute, right? Well, the answer to that question is maybe and sometimes. So maybe you want to give your title, and sometimes you want to give your title, but you'll almost never always do that, if that even makes sense. Add your title basically into the introduction only if your title adds to your credibility on that topic. For example, if you're delivering a financial presentation and you happen to be the chief financial officer, the CFO of your company, you might mention that it would be important. That adds to your credibility if you're giving a financial statement, because you're the expert for that company's financials. If the CFO, though, is delivering a presentation about the value of joining a trade association, probably no reason to mention that, because if you do, it's probably going to sound like you're bragging or something. It's not going to really fit. It's not really appropriate for that. If, like, for instance, I'll give you a really good example of this. So if I'm out teaching a public speaking class, then I'm typically not going to say, hey, I'm Doug Stannard, CEO of the Leaders Institute, right? Instead, I'll say, I'm Doug Stannard. I'm an instructor for the Fearless Presentations class. So that adds more credibility to what I'm doing. There's really the fact that I'm the CEO of the company has no value in my credibility at helping people overcome public speaking fear, right? The second thing, so step two. So after you've kind of given your quick introduction on who you are and what company you represent, and maybe a description of that if necessary, step two is you want to tell your audience what problem you solve for them. This is where the type of introduction that I teach to my students is quite a bit different from most introductions that you're going to see. And it works really, really, really well. This is fairly unique in the industry, because we really want to focus on the problem that we kind of solve for people. And that, by the way, this is where a lot of the pre-work comes into play, those questions that I was suggesting that you answer ahead of time, because in this step, you're going to use the answers to those questions that you answered earlier. For instance, if my topic is how to deliver presentations, I have to determine why the audience would care about how to deliver presentations, right? What's in it for them? For my audience, the problem that I most often help people with is how to eliminate public speaking fear. So once I have the problem, I just add that to my introduction by using the words "I help people," and then whatever it is, the problem that I solve. So like for instance, I would say, "Hey, I'm Doug Stannard with the Leaders Institute, an international leadership development company, and I help people eliminate public speaking fear." So if my topic is how to close a higher percentage of sales presentations, though, I'm going to alter my introduction, and it might sound something like, "Hey, I'm Doug Stannard with the Leaders Institute, an international leadership development company, and I help people design more persuasive sales presentations." So I do both of those, and I'm an expert at both of those things, but depending on the topic that I'm presenting on is going to determine what problem I'm going to identify at the very beginning of the speech. Like for instance, I focus my introduction on just the expertise that is applicable for the audience this time. So if I gave the first introduction about how to overcome public speaking fear to the sales audience, I'm going to get people in the audience going, "Well, I don't really get nervous speaking, so I guess I can tune out of the speech." So basically, I'm going to lose people because that's not the topic that I'm presenting on. So create a problem statement with the "I help people" statement, and make it apply to what your audience really, really wants. So that's why those questions that we asked earlier are so important. All right, so step 3, this is the last thing. So once you've introduced yourself by giving your name and your company, and then you've talked about the problem that you solve, you also have to prove that you can actually solve that problem. So by the way, if you just do steps number 1 and steps number 2, your introduction is going to be way better than most introductions that you'll likely hear when you're self-introductions anyway, when you're delivering a presentation or when you're listening to a presentation. However, if you add this 3rd step, you're going to gain more respect and you're going to gain more positive attention from your audience. So one of the things to keep in mind is that without adding some type of proof that you can solve that problem, you're just giving your opinion that you're an expert. However, if you can prove it, now that proof tells the audience that you actually are an expert at that thing that you're presenting on. So this part is a little bit trickier than the rest. And for some reason, a lot of times folks will kind of get to this part and feel like they haven't accomplished great things. So they kind of diminish the great accomplishments that they have made, that they are the expert in that thing. For instance, an easy way to offer proof to your audience is just with a quick little personal story of how you've solved that problem in the past. So if I say that I help people eliminate public speaking fear, all I have to do is think about just one of the 20,000 times in my career that I've helped somebody reduce public speaking fear. Just pick one of those, tell the quick little story in a 30-second or a 45-second or maybe minute-long format, and use that as my proof.